Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Freshly Pressed. This is episode number 10, which means we final episode of the season. We have with us Randy Stone, creator of Bullet, the series Bullet. Welcome, Randy.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Uh, I would love for you to introduce yourself, how you got into comics, and things like that.
Yeah, sounds good. So, like you said, Randy Stone. I've been into comics since I was probably 10 years old. I got in with the Marvel Universe trading card series. A friend of mine at the time and I would buy these trading cards at a 7-Eleven along with candies and whatever else. And that was my gateway to the wonderful characters of Marvel Comics. And I got hooked from there. Um, Pretty much stayed with Marvel for the my childhood. Never really got into much DC comics until I was a bit later when it was more Vertigo stuff I was trying from them. But yeah, huge into X-Men, Jim Lee at the time, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
Wanted comics my whole life, so I used to make my own, and I studied art at university with the intention of drawing comics for a living, and that really didn't pan out too well. So it's pretty tough to get in. I was trying to be an inker for a while. I actually wrote my first book as an excuse for something that I could ink, and I hired out some pencilers that I worked with and got that published. Didn't do too well financially, so I ended up setting comics aside for a little while and started a family, got a real job, all that kind of thing. But the desire to create never leaves, and I started doing some short stories and developing some other larger format comics and self-publishing in the past few years under the banner of Altruist Comics. And Bullet Adventures is the newest one. Just finished a Kickstarter for that back in the fall. People who backed it have been receiving those copies over the past week or so. Kind of a Christmas present, timed that pretty well. And
that's
then I'll be
awesome.
launching. Yeah, it was. It just worked out that way. And then basically in January, I'll be launching a new campaign for issues 2 and 3 of the series.
Wow. Why did you decide to do issues 2 and 3 together?
Um, Partly to save shipping for my backers. It's incredibly expensive. I'm in Canada, and it seems like it's 2 to 3 times more expensive to ship from here as within the United States. So I figure if people are going to pay for, could be upwards of $20 or $30 or more internationally for shipping, I kind of want to give them more bang for their buck. And I've got the issues done. We worked ahead on this series, so I've actually got number 4 done, waiting on the backup stories for that. But 2 and 3 are basically done, wrapping up the backup stories, but the main stories are 100% complete and they're ready to go. And I'm just eager to get them into backers' hands and let the readers actually see what I've been working on for the past year.
That's awesome. Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. Sometimes I want to get comics shipped to Australia, and the shipping itself is so cost prohibitive. Like if
Yeah.
I find a comic for like $15 and I end up paying $25 as shipping, it's just too
Exactly.
cost prohibitive at times.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and I really want to get a physical copy of Bullet because the art looks gorgeous, and some of the pages are just incredible.
I've been really lucky with the people I've worked with, starting from my co-writer Jordan Alseca, right down to the artists I've had. The original artist, Laura, or sorry, Kath Lobo, who did the one shot, wasn't available, so we started the new series with Kath Lobo. She did issue 1. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to continue, so I found
Uh,
Nico Carrizo, who did the artwork that you see in your background there. Teamed him up with Fran Citarelli, a wonderful colorist, and yeah, the work they've been putting out is better than a ton of stuff that Marvel and DC do.
oh
So I'm
yeah.
super excited about showing that off. And Nico's brand new. He's actually never had
Wow.
anything published until the cover that he did for issue 1. And so it's going to be quite a surprise to the comic book fans to discover this guy.
That's so awesome. I think I haven't read issue 1, so issue 2 and 3 give me a lot of like uncanny X-Men vibes.
Yeah.
The old school, like you said, Jim Lee inspired, like really old school uncanny X-Men vibes. So yeah, absolutely love reading through some of that. And like funny you said that, because that Jim Lee's X-Men run actually got me into comics in the first place
Yeah.
as well. And
Okay.
like just hooked me for life, like X-Men is one of my favorites ever, like
Yeah.
comics. And obviously I got into DC stuff a bit later, but like obviously Batman and then X-Men are just some of my favorite stuff. So yeah.
Did you move here to Batman with Jim Lee? Like Hush kind of brought you over, or was it other stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but Jim Lee and Chris Campbell's run in X-Men is just like is incredible, you know.
No,
Yeah.
it's ingrained in me, basically, that era of X-Men. I've strayed away from X-Men in the past maybe 15, 20 years, but that stuff I'll always look back on fondly. That was the epitome of superhero artwork and just that action and adventure. Just Jim Lee's greatest of all time.
Absolutely. Even like the usage of color palette is so like I mean like into the characters, like it's so ingrained into the characters as well. It like how they interact with the world and their costumes and things like that. They just reflect the character personalities so well, like that whole era.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that like Cyclops blue and yellow kind of thing, kind of see a little bit of that in Bullet's design, even
Yes, yeah. I was about to say that.
intentionally, but I can see that's probably just in the back of my mind always.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so awesome. Like, yeah, but as soon as I hit those first few pages of issue two, I had that like it's good. Like it's mix of Quicksilver and Cyclops, like the feel of the character.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Also, like I said, I didn't really follow DC growing up, but Jordan's a big Flash fan, so he's kind of got that speedster vibe.
Yeah,
He knows all that stuff, and not that we want to copy anything that's been handled already, but he can kind of steer us through that speedster
yeah,
vibe.
absolutely.
First thing I better do once we wrap our call, though, I'm going to have to send you the one shot and issue one because you got to catch up on that stuff. We pride ourselves in not having to have read those previous issues. They're all very much jumping on points. You can pick it up with just that simple blurb we have on the credits page. Like, we'll tell you everything you need to know to continue on with that issue, but just for your sake, I'll send those over to you.
Thank you so much. And I actually love that. Like when I read issue two, it didn't feel like it felt like it was starting point of a new story.
Yeah.
And I got some like exposition as we moved on. And so I kind of got what happened in issue one, reading the next two issues as well. So like yeah, kudos to you. I think that's great writing.
Yeah. Well, we really think that the way that new readers can jump in will allow the readership to grow along with us. I can't stand when you jump into an issue 58, let's say, and you have no idea what's been going on for the past 5 years, and there's just no way you can pick up a series at that point. But with this one, I really do feel that you can jump on with any issue, just like when we were kids, and you grab some random copy of something on the rack, and you can just jump right in.
Yeah. You have no idea how many times I've read like issue 31 and then gone to the comic book store and trying to find like where are the back issues? I just need to catch up on
Yeah,
everything before this.
exactly. Yeah. So the good thing about the Kickstarter too, I've got the previous issues available for people to do the whole catch up if they missed out on the first campaigns, and then they can read the whole thing along with issues 2 and 3.
That's awesome. Is issue one available as a part of the campaign as well?
Yeah, it's definitely there as an add-on,
Yeah,
as well as the
nice.
one shot that came out last year.
That's awesome. No, that's great. Uh, I think my favorite part, obviously, like you mentioned in the press release, to check out like page number 5 in issue 2, but my absolute favorite was page number 20 in issue 3. That whole page is just incredible. I
I
don't want
think
to
which one
spoil
that was.
anything for anyone
Yeah,
because it should come as a surprise, and when it does, I think people will just love it.
yeah. Well, it's a lot
Yeah.
of fun. I'm actually, one of the reasons why I'm releasing 2 and 3 is because I'm super excited about issue 3. Not that I want to jump past 1 and 2 and get to 3, but the character of Cupid, the villain that they face in that issue, I love the design. The whole thing that we set up there. There's my favorite page in there, I think, was 17, which is just a very innovative way of doing a comic storytelling. And I just can't wait to show that off. So I'm rushing through and releasing 2 issues right now just so I can get to that point where I can share that online without spoiling anything myself. Because
Yeah.
issue 2 is somewhat of a spoiler as on its own. Um, the new direction we take, it's completely by surprise when you turn to page 2 on that.
Yeah.
It's not what anybody would be expecting, so it'll be fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I really like the characterization of Cupid. It actually turns the whole villain thing on its head. It's not a usual villain at all, and you like it's completely unexpected. So
Yeah.
I was taken by surprise a little there.
It doesn't always have to be so serious and dark, I think. Like our approaches with that little banter they've got, and it's just having fun. And I think that's really the approach we've taken with this book. It's like superheroes should be fun. It doesn't have to be all grim and gritty and real world stuff. Like they're brightly colored, they're doing crazy stuff and just having a good time. And we should be enjoying that as the reader as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where little bit of Flash vibe comes on as well with Elaine, and like she's just like she's very quippy, and that kind of chatty and quippy. That's what Flash is like as well.
Yeah.
So, apart from being a speedster. So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, no, really, really love both the issues. I think people should really look forward to these. Do feel free to share like your campaign links, any pre-order pages or pre-sign up, all those kind of
Sure.
pages.
Yeah, I'm really
Um,
hoping to get people to start following that campaign. So when we launch, we'll hit that big number right off the bat and get the algorithms working in my favor.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. Um, what I do like to capture a lot of like pop culture references from different books. Um, what are the like apart from obviously the sources that we talked about, what are some of the pop culture sources that you're most inspired by?
Well, I'm really not sure. When people ask me about influences, I don't know if anything really shows up in my work or, inspires me in a specific way. I mean, I consume media, I consume TV and movies and stuff like that. Offhand, I can't even think of like anything that's really stuck with me.
Mm,
I've been watching the MCU movies, of course. I'm behind on all the shows because I don't have Disney Plus, but seeing that kind of stuff in real life almost, that was kind of a dream come true for a comic fan to actually see that stuff on the big screen. Stuff we've all imagined in our heads and on the page, but actually seeing that real people doing that was pretty incredible.
yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe in a way, that's why I'm taking a step back to more like a cartoony comic book feel, like because we've done the real life stuff now, and we can just kind of go back to simple superhero storytelling. I like
absolutely.
sci-fi stuff, the odd horror thing. I can't really think of anything offhand that's really pushing me in creatively.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. I think I also like the fact that uh, at least the issue two is a bit of like, or maybe there's a running theme of the lead character coming of age, and like it's a bit of high school setup and coming of age, like so
Yeah,
yeah, that kind of thing. And like gives me a bit of like Spider-Man vibes as well when there's a college group or a high school group of
yeah,
friends, and they have their own like internal banter and stuff. And
yeah,
that just adds a bit of like a good dimension to the story, because then that gives um superhero more humanity, or like grounds them into like a more human aspect of it, right?
exactly. I think the stakes are always higher too when you have that connection to a character and meeting their friends and family and everything. It really makes the character themselves real, and we get a sense of who they are based on their interactions with others. You mentioned coming of age kind of thing. Invincible was a huge inspiration too. And honestly, what I've always tried to aim for is Invincible before it got all gory. Like this is a stripping all that gore away and all the blood and violence and stuff, and so it's kid safe. But that
Yep.
same kind of approach, where it's just a modern take on traditional superhero tropes, I guess, but a new spin on it.
Yep.
The artwork, it's bright, it's fun, just like back when Corey started and Ryan took over, and it kind of has that feel, but just
Yeah.
without all the blood and guts that it eventually turned into.
That was exactly about to be my next question. I do feel like it wasn't like it has some inspiration. It took some inspiration from Invincible because I think the whole like the initial bit of when when she talks about Eileen talks about discovering her powers and things like that. That's so like the first season of Invincible when the whole like the
Yeah,
character discovery of power happens and things like that.
yeah, it's a whole learning experience, and you'd come to expect that, I guess, with Spider-Man or any youthful character at the time. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. No, yeah, you hit the nail on its head. It's yeah, it's really good. Cool. Uh, yeah. Normally, like, what like I asked this question to everyone. What should your readers expect from you, uh, as a creator? Like what kind of stories, what kind of characters?
yeah,
Like what kind of characters do you like? Are you attracted to in mainstream or indie comics or what should
it's
people expect
everything
from you?
really. I mean, I've run the gamut from crime and horror to superhero, kid-friendly superhero stuff. So I've done a bit of everything. I do tend to think of these characters as like real people in my head almost. Like you come to understand who they are, whether that makes it to the page. I think it influences what's there, even if we don't go into all the details and tell every little story of their life. But I've almost built that backstory into my head for a lot of the characters, so they're real to me in a way. And I really appreciate Jordan's work on the book. Like he's an excellent writer, but he's also taken these characters and kind of helped make them well-rounded and real people as well. So I think whether it's superheroes or a very grounded crime story, I think that's my approach. I just try to make them believable in the context of that story. So yeah, we don't
Yeah,
believe that someone can move at lightning speed or anything, but once we put that aside, then they are just real people, and how would they deal with these situations and whatnot?
absolutely, absolutely. I think uh I like the fact that like like even that is similar to Invincible in a way that it's about a family and the family dynamic that's going on, and like how Eileen and her grandmother and mother's relationship. I don't want to spoil too much about the new characters that come in issue 3, but like it's uh, I love the whole family dynamic aspect of it. I believe that forms the core of the story, and then
Exactly.
yeah, villains are obviously villains, so they have to be there for all the fun of it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think even going back to the first one shot we did last year, Dale and Joanna back in the 60s, that was as important as the heroic stuff. Like we're really developing their relationship. They're two young adults falling in love, and he just happened to be developing these super speed and everything, and fighting villains and whatnot. But it was always there at the core of it, this relationship that they had, and that's continued on to the continuing series here.
yeah. No, that's awesome. I think like I personally love those kind of stories where the core is very human, and then there's also like all these fantastical elements tagged around it. Uh, do you want to get like some of the inspirations around villains? Have you like what kinds of villains have you loved across like your comics and yeah, what inspires the villains that you write?
Yeah, I think, I mean, especially with that initial one shot, it was 40 pages. Yeah. So we're trying to cram a whole history of this character into one because it was just a self-contained story at the time. And we tried to create like a rogues gallery that you would have a lot of villains that he could face and build that up so that it was like telling a whole series of a superhero. So Spidey's villains, I guess Flash or Batman, that have these really incredible, colorful villains. We're going for something similar. You've got Leopard Gecko, and he's an animalistic type. This reptile is shooting his tongue across the background there. It's also
Yeah,
very sci-fi, high-tech stuff, robotica and the big mech, all these sorts of things. Just playing with fun ideas. You can do anything you want, and I've heard that heroes are defined by their villains. So having that well-defined rogues gallery of villains, you could see how Bullet would play off these different characters as well.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then just designing fun costumes and crazy scenarios with the tongue, or just anything that he can fight against. It's just a lot of fun. I mean, that's like I go back to these Marvel Universe trading cards. It was all those colorful costumes and just cool designs, and
yeah.
it's just the one hero here to start. But um, coming up with a bunch of villains is just what would be fun to see on the page, and what would be fun to see Dale fight. So yeah, it's all in fun. That's my motivation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I always believe it's almost more fun to come up with villains than heroes for some
Yeah,
reason, because you have to think more about how can I challenge this hero in some way, and that they have to go through all those trial and tribulations to like overcome this big threat, right?
yeah. And it's interesting for a speedster too, because when you really think about it, if he's that fast, he could probably resolve all conflicts before any move was made. So we kind of have to set that aside a little bit, but just have these challenging villains that he'd face. And I guess one thing you see with a lot of stories is they constantly have to level up because there are bigger and badder threats out there. And we always have to outdo the last one and make it something earth shattering eventually. So they're all still kind of grounded. They're not, world conquering gods yet. They're all kind of like the basic science fiction villains, or like Spidey would face. So we're kind of
Yeah,
keeping it lefty to start, but I'd imagine we'll get bigger and as we go. People will level up. And
yeah, yeah. I think Spidey has a lot of memorable villains. Like, I don't know which ones are your favorite. A lot of them are obviously like just thugs or bank robbers, but like they have
yeah,
some, like some of them are really really memorable.
yeah. I mean, they can be silly at times too. Like Doctor Octopus, the name itself, Otto Octavius. It's silly and it doesn't make any sense, but it's
Yeah,
perfect. And
yeah,
we've played with stuff like that as well. But yeah, all those. I like the green and purple. Like a lizard.
yep,
Just that looks cool. I don't think we've done any green and purple in our book yet, but maybe we'll have to do an upcoming villain that's that color scheme. That's kind of the
yeah.
classic with Green Goblin as well. Speaking of colorful villains, Cupid, who's the villain for number 3, that came from this design. Like I had this in mind, like a pure white with just this red heart that's on his chest. He's wearing all this tactical gear, and he shoots these darts that make people fall in love and stuff. That's the Cupid theme.
Yeah.
That was an idea I had from like 20 years ago, but finally was able to work it into this story here.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. It's
Yeah.
almost like you have thought about it all your life, and then now you're realizing it. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It was
Yeah.
a dream come true. I can't, I hope that this spreads to as many readers as possible. But I'm the biggest fan, and I'm doing it for me more than anything. Like I'm hiring these collaborators to work for me to put my dream into reality,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
been amazing to see it come together like this.
Actually, the thing that makes Cupid's costume a bit edgy is actually not. It's the fact that the heart is not just a straight up heart; it's a bleeding heart. So
And that
you,
was design. Like I just had I set a heart, and I drew a heart when I did my initial sketch and everything. But he had that kind of like running down, and yeah, it's
yeah,
pretty, what?
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. It's also like I think it makes you wonder if there's some sort of like sad backstory to Cupid. Uh, yeah,
Well, we'll definitely be diving into him. I hope that we can do dozens, if not hundreds, of issues eventually. And that's the thing. You want to tell so many stories. Excuse me.
you're right.
But making room for the next villain, and not trying to retread over the same characters over and over again, but also making sure that we can keep putting out books and tell the stories that we want to get to with some of these characters. I've got a dozen or more plotted out, so I hope that we get there.
That's so good. Like I think people must expect really good adventure stories from you. And I also like the fact that these books are like all ages. They're not they're quite kid safe and in both language and visual. So they're actually they can be enjoyed by maybe like upwards of 7 or 8 year olds, you know?
Exactly. And I've got an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old at home, so they're my audience, my test audience here. But again, I think that as adults, we enjoy it just as much. Like for the nostalgia factor of reading comics like the ones we grew up on,
Yeah.
but also introducing kids like mine to this brand new hero, and they can jump in on the ground floor. You
Yep.
know, it's not issue 200 and something like a Marvel or DC. Like they can really just, this can be their hero that they grew up with. And
Yeah.
that'd be pretty fun if it got to that point.
Yeah. That's very, very true. Uh, I, I, I would really love to see some of the panels that you have displayed in your background, actually.
Oh yeah, it's original art that I picked up over the years. Like I mentioned earlier, I was trying to break in as an inker, and so I would pick up professional pages from conventions I went to. There's a bunch of Marvel DC stuff. I don't know. There's a glare on there. The one right in the middle
Yeah.
is actually a page from The Walking Dead. I bought that from Tony way back when, before it really became big, and this is a photocopy now because I actually ended up selling the original page, and
Right.
that funded the first two comics I self-published. So it was a tough thing to actually lose that page. It's
Mm.
not only my connection to Tony and my love for the book, but that page is one of my two favorite pages in comics ever, and I was lucky enough to have it. But I couldn't turn away the offer for the amount of money that they were selling for at the time, and I was able to fulfill my dream of publishing a couple of my own books. So that's why I
That's
did it. But
amazing.
there's a lot of other cool stuff up here.
Yeah, I think that's a good enough reason. Yeah.
Exactly. It's the only way I could justify it. It wasn't just a cash grab. I wasn't gonna, you know, blow all the money on something. It was really to make my dream come true of producing some books of my own.
That's great, and I'm so glad you were able to realize your dream of being an author. You know, like a self-published author. Have you have you been approached by any of the studios, like publishing houses, studios where you work?
Not approached, but back in the day, I did submit a lot of pitches around, or a couple pitches. I had a few books published. Arcana did a book way back when. That was the one that I did a dozen years ago now. And then Scout, I did a book with them. But as I started doing more of my own self-publishing and kickstarting, I kind of felt having that control is good, not sharing profits with the company, kind of controlling it all myself and trying to build a brand. So
Yeah,
hopefully I can do that with Alfred's Comics. I want to get to the point where I'm publishing more of other people's work as well, not just ones that I've had my hands in, but actually open up to bring in other people's work. I've done that a little bit through an anthology, Crime Pays, I put out. It's an anthology of crime stories.
yep.
I've got backup stories in these bullet issues. So yeah, I like to expose new creators to published work. That'd be great if I can help them get a foot in the door and eventually take on miniseries and graphic novels from other people as well. Slowly but surely, I'm getting there.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think that's what I love about self-publishing and also like indie comics. You can do pretty much anything with the medium at hand. Your
Yeah,
creativity, your limits to creativity are just yourself and nothing else.
yeah,
Um, and you're not really affected by like a publisher's deadline or
yeah,
even like what their content calendar or something like that, right? You're
exactly.
yeah, and the like obviously getting all the uh, instead of royalties, you're getting profits, which is a great thing.
Yeah,
Um, and also you can basically control your destiny, right? Like you can go become a publisher, or become a publisher yourself, get other artists and creators a chance, or maybe just keep exploring the new directions for your work yourself.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to do a balance of that. Obviously, I'll never stop coming up with ideas, so I'll obviously be putting my own books out. But it would be nice to balance that out with other people and actually make Altruist a substantial publisher itself. I know there's problems in Indiecomics, pay, that's going on lately. Well, for a long time, but that's all kind of coming out these past few weeks about some of the publishers that are not paying or taking a
Yeah.
long time to get them out there. But I pride myself. I pay my collaborators upfront half, and then throughout the project another half as they go through batches, and they get the money before they start working on it most of the time. So I can't pay a ton. I know that I'm very indie wages, but the money that I do pay, I make sure they have it. I'm not gonna let them be out of pocket for
Yeah.
any money. So
Yeah, I totally get that. And I understand comics is a hard business. In general, like printing costs are going high, shipping costs have
yeah,
elevated so much in last 2 years. There's like supply chain problems and things like that. There's still margins to be had though. Like they're not great, and the volume obviously depends on how successful your campaigns run and what's the life of comic after that. But I think it can be done. It can still be run as a business where you actually make money, and
yeah, for sure.
yeah,
And scaling up what I've been doing so far. So I've seen slow growth, but it is trending in the right direction. So I'm happy with that, and hopefully in a couple of years I'll be, doing okay.
absolutely. I totally like wish you all the best for that, and your work speaks for itself. So I'm pretty sure you'll find a lot of good fans along the way.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, cool. We're coming to time, so maybe just give us some updates on the campaign and on the pre-launch page and just take it away, and give some premise of the next upcoming campaign.
Okay, so yeah, January 24th is when we launch. It's the Kickstarter for Bullet Adventures number 2 and 3, and as well as catching up on all the previous stuff and other titles that have been published by Altruist Comics. The link I'm sure I'll share with you, but it's like projects slash Altruist Comics Bullet Adventures 2, something like that. But if you go to altruistcomics.com/Bullet Adventures 2, just the number 2, that'll redirect you to the page. So that's a little bit easier to find than the long Kickstarter link. But I will hook you up with that so you can add it to under the video. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It's kid safe. It's a lot of fun for adults as well. Building something cool here. It's really special, and I hope people will give it a try because I can guarantee if you read it, you'll enjoy it.
I absolutely did, and I guarantee that if you read it, you will enjoy it. Your kids will enjoy it too, and I think a lot of people will love it as a cherished memory where they can read it with their kids together and something that they can share. I think there's absolutely a good market for that. So yeah. Thank you so much, Randy, for your time today, and I appreciate coming on the podcast and sharing all the love for your comics with us.
Thanks for having me, Rob. I really appreciate being here, and I thank all of your viewers for checking it out and giving them my time as well.
Awesome.